Last time we gave an example of a free particle that's moving in three-dimensional space. Okay, and we used Cartesian coordinates as the generalized coordinates and looked at the Euler-Lagrange equations, and from there we derived our, or let's say we obtained our Newton's equations of motion. Okay, that was the simplest thing we could ask. A free particle in Cartesian space is the simplest thing that you can ask. To gain more experience, let's take the example of again a free particle moving in let's say not 3 but 2 dimensions. Okay, in 2 dimensions, x and y plane, let's say. But this time we don't want to use Cartesian coordinates as the generalized coordinates, rather polar coordinates. Okay, so I'll use r and theta as the generalized coordinates, and let's look at what we get for equations of motion from Euler-Lagrange equations. That's one example, and if possible, I'll take one more example after this one. Okay, so let's get started. Okay, here. So I'll take the example of I'm trying to use green color for examples. I don't know whether I will remember this later in other videos, but today. Okay, so as I said, a free particle in 2 dimension. In 2 dimensions. Okay. So what do I want to use for the generalized coordinates? Okay. I think it's already clear that it's a 2-dimensional problem. There are only 2 degrees of freedom, and instead of x and y, I can use r and theta. And this will typically be the case. Most of the time you will be able to guess what the generalized coordinates are appropriate for the problem. Okay, in this case, r and theta and x and y, they are all equally good. Actually, x and y will be even nicer, the Cartesian ones. But generally the symmetry of the problem will dictate to you what should be the generalized coordinates. Okay, so let's take this. Now before I look at Euler-Lagrange equation, let's have some expectation of what we are going to get. So imagine this is the origin of the coordinate system, and this, let's say you are going to fire the particle in this way, in this direction. Okay, so you know it will continue along the same straight line because there are no forces. Now if you take any point P on this, this will have some radial distance r and some polar angle theta. Okay, theta is measured from the x-axis. Okay, and what we want to know is how the coordinates r and theta are evolving with time. Okay, if you had fired it radially outwards, okay, if it was going like this through the origin, then clearly the angle will not change, and it will have only the radial velocity. Okay, and but because you have fired it not from here, it's not passing through the origin, it's going from some distance away from the origin, it will have an angular velocity, because you see the angle will keep changing. When it's here, this is the angle. When it's there, the angle has changed. Okay, this is the new angle now. Okay, so it will have both angular velocities and radial velocities, and also you will see it will have, it's also, you can just, if you think for a moment, you'll realize that it will have angular acceleration and also radial accelerations, but we'll see it explicitly. So that's what we are expecting in general. So how do we go about writing down the equations of motion. So first I do write down the relation between r and the generalized coordinates. And by r I mean x and y. Vector r I meant. So x is r cos of theta and y is r sine of theta. Okay. Now because I want to construct first the Lagrangian of the system, which involves T and U, kinetic energy and the potential energy. Potential energy is 0. I need to construct only the kinetic energy, which involves velocities, x dot square plus y dot square. Okay. So let me calculate x dot and y dot. X dot is r dot cos of theta minus r sine theta, okay, theta dot. Okay, so I'm taking derivative of cos theta in here. Then your y dot would be r dot sine of theta plus r cos theta theta dot. Okay. Now I want to do x dot square plus y dot square. So I have to square this and add. So when I square them, you'll have a square of this term and a square of this term, which will add, and cos square theta and sin square theta will give you 1. Let me write down x dot square plus y dot square equals. So I'm adding the squares of this and that right now. So I'll get r dot square. Let's add squares of these two as well. You'll get r square theta dot square and sin square theta, and this one will give the same terms times cos square theta. And again I use the identity, sin square theta plus cos square theta is 1. It goes away. So I get r square theta dot square. Then there will be the cross terms. Okay. So you have, from this one you'll get r dot r sin theta cos theta and theta dot with a minus 2. And here again you get r dot r sin theta cos theta theta dot. So all the terms are identical, only the difference is in the sign, so they will cancel when you add them up. So it's clear that this answer is correct, and your kinetic energy T, let me write it down here. The kinetic energy T is half m r dot square plus r square theta dot square. That's good. That is correct, no mistakes. And your L is T in this case, so the same thing is the Lagrangian. Now I have to take the derivative with respect to both the coordinates. Okay, so my Q is the generalized coordinate r and theta, as I said several times already. Okay, so let's look at the equation corresponding to r. Okay, then you have d over dt del L over del r dot minus del L over del r equals 0. The particle is free, which means d over dt del L over del r dot, so you get half m and 2 r dot, so half and 2 cancel, so you get m r dot, correct. Del L over del r, the only second term has r, the first term does not have. So the partial derivative of this first term with respect to r will be 0, only this one will contribute, and you'll get minus m r theta dot square equals 0. Okay, which implies m r double dot minus m r theta dot square is equal to 0. That's good. Let's look at the q equal to theta equation. Now del L over del theta is 0 because kinetic energy does not involve theta. So that term is gone. I am only left with d over dt del L over del theta dot. So your d over dt and del L over del theta dot will come only from here, and it will be m r square. It doesn't do anything to r square. Okay, it's a independent coordinate. Theta dot square will give you 2 theta dot, which has the 2 has cancelled the half, so you have theta dot. Okay, that's good. Perfect. No mistakes. So now I can write this down as m. I take the derivative of r square, total time derivative. I'm just doing the chain rule. So you get 2 r dot theta dot. Next I differentiate the theta dot term, so I get m r square theta double dot equal to 0. Okay, let me write it first, the theta double dot terms and then the theta dot terms. So I get theta double dot m r square plus 2 m r dot theta dot equals 0. Let's check. M r square theta double dot 2 m r dot theta dot equals 0. Perfect. Everything is correct. So your equations of motion are this one and this one. There's a theta dot here. Okay, there's a dot, one dot only, this one. Okay, this if you recall, this is a familiar result. So if you take acceleration, okay, which is the time derivative of velocity, and write it in polar coordinates for the radial component, I mean the component of acceleration along r hat, the unit vector along the radial direction, will be what you have on the left hand side here. And for the component, if you look at the component corresponding to theta hat, the tangential direction, you will get this piece. Okay, this term here, which is on the left hand side here. So these are our familiar results, and which we have derived using Euler-Lagrange equations. And I wanted to say, yeah, so just note that this is your linear acceleration along the radial direction, right? This is your centripetal term. This is your linear acceleration along the theta hat tangential direction. That's your Coriolis term. Okay, and because there are no forces, your right hand sides are 0. Now we'll assume that there are forces also present and look at the same problem, a single particle in 2 dimensions, when there are forces present. Okay, and let's see what it will look like. So as far as the left hand side goes, in the Euler-Lagrange equations, what you have got here is already correct. All you have to do is look at the generalized forces on the right hand side, Q alphas. Okay, so that's what we are going to now look at. Okay, so your example, did I call it example 1? No. Example same as before, but with forces present. Let's say, but with a force, affecting on that particle. And this, I'm assuming that this force is also working only in the 2D, in the plane. Okay, so let's see. So I have to look at Q alpha, where in our present case it becomes Q r and Q theta. Okay, and what are QR and Q theta? So QR is F, there is only one particle, so there is no label on the particle, dot del R over del R. Okay, remember del R over del Q, so that Q is R here. There is no summation involved because only one particle. And similarly, your Q theta will be F dot del R over del theta. Okay, so you do these two simple exercises now. Show that if you take the derivative del R over this R, okay, I'll tell you the result, but even before that, you look at on the left hand side, this is a dimensionless quantity. You have the dimensions of length in the numerator here and dimensions of length in the denominator. So whatever you get on the right hand side has to be dimensionless. Okay, so clearly it cannot involve R. Then it has to be a vector quantity because the left hand side is a vector. There is a vector R in the numerator. So whatever you get on the right hand side has to be a dimensionless vector. And it's not surprising that your okay, it's not obvious from what I'm saying. You have your unit vector R hat here. And let's look at and another part for you to show is del R over del theta. Okay, this guy, the left hand side, should have the dimensions of R and should be a vector again because theta is dimensionless. Okay, so the dimensions have to match and you get R theta hat. Okay, that's correct. Okay, and this R hat is, if you are not sure, so R hat is what is R hat? R hat is vector R over R. So that is why it is dimensionless, because the dimensions cancel. Okay, if you do those two exercises and plug it in here, you get Q of R F dot R hat, which is just the component of force in the radial direction. So I put a subscript R, and your Q of theta will be F dot R theta hat, okay, which is R, this R, and F of theta. So I'm taking the component of the force along the tangential direction and I call it F theta. Okay, and as you can see, this is nothing but the torque. Okay, and this is the force, the radial component of the force. So your equations of motion in this case would become, you'll just substitute QR and Q theta in here. So I'll put here QR, which is FR, and here I'll put Q theta, which is R times F theta, which is the torque. Okay, those will be your equations of motion when you have forces present and you are using not the Cartesian coordinates but polar coordinates. Okay, that's good. I think I can take one more simple example to get some practice. Okay, let's do that one as well. So till now I have not taken any constraints in the system. Both the examples which I took in this video and the previous video, they all were without any constraints. But now imagine you have a single particle which is moving along a circle. Okay, it is constrained to move along a circle. So imagine some wire which is put in that form, and think of a bead which is sliding along it without any frictional forces. Okay, and then there are also no forces. Now this is a problem with the constraint. So the particle is, though it is in, let's say, xy plane, but it has only 1 degree of freedom. Okay, just the angle theta with respect to x-axis, for example. So let's write down the equation of motion for this, and because we have taken care of the constraints already, we don't have to worry about it. They are built in the equations of motion. They were already done away with. The f primes were already removed. Okay, so let's look at this example. Where is it? Example. A particle constrained to move on a circle. Okay, so clearly there is a force of constraint and there are no other forces on it. Okay, so this problem has degree of freedom 1, and for the generalized coordinate q I will use theta. Okay, and note that theta is dimensionless, which is fine, no problem. We already obtained the kinetic energy in polar coordinates for a particle in the previous example, and I will utilize that one. So remember that one had, where is it? Let's go there. Here, this place. Okay, now r is fixed, so r dot will be 0, and let's say the value of r is some r naught, so I will get kinetic energy to be half m r naught square theta dot square. Half m r naught square theta dot square. That's the kinetic energy, and as we said, no forces, so potential is 0, which means the same thing is the Lagrangian for us in this case. So let's write down the equations of motion. It's only one. There's no r involved in this, so only theta. So del L over del theta is 0. There is no theta in the Lagrangian. Okay, there is only theta dot. So I have del L over del theta dot d over dt equals 0 theta dot, which means, okay, let's look at del L over del theta dot m r naught square theta dot and d over dt, which implies m r naught square theta double dot is 0 or theta double dot is 0. Okay, meaning there will be no angular acceleration. So the particle will keep moving in the circle at the same angular velocity. That's what this equation is saying, which is also consistent with what you expect. And these are some simple examples of how to use Euler-Lagrange equations. And there are several examples which you can find in different books, and I will encourage you to have a look at them and make sure that you are comfortable using Euler-Lagrange equations. Okay, this is where we'll stop today and continue next time. See you then. Bye.